with Custer County OSU Extension, and today I would like to show you a simple, fun bookmark that you can make with oftentimes found items at home, but it's a great gift and it's very versatile. So we are going to be making a button bookmark using a ribbon, a hair elastic, and a button. So to gather your things that you're going to need for today, you're going to want to find some ribbon. This is about 1 inch wide. You could go a little bit wider or a little bit narrower. Depending on the size of book that you use, it will make a difference on what size bookmark you're going to make. So this is one that I made that has a button that looks like a cat. But if I were going to do this for my husband who reads Westerns, his book is much smaller. So I need to measure to figure out the average size of what these are going to be. So let's take that and measure with our ribbon. So we want to be able to go around the book. I'm going to cut this about here. It looks like it's going to be about 1.5 feet. And I'm going to trim it straight across. And then straight across on the opposite end. We would stick it in the middle and then bring it around to the front and the back. And you can see it just barely overlaps. So we have our ribbon, we have our hair elastic, and now I need a button. As I looked through the button box in my house, I had 3 buttons that were about the same size. Now there's difference in buttons as we look at these. This is a 4-hole button. This one is a 2-hole button that's kind of, which is a shank button. And a shank button means that on the back there's a raised area. If I turn it sideways, you can see this. And that sticks out the back, and that is how the button is sewn on, so it can have an entire decorative front without a hole in it. I think the black button will go best, don't you? So with our football theme, it's very masculine, and I think he will like it. So we're going to fold under the first edge just a little bit, and then take our elastic, slip it through, and fold that over. So I'm going to take a straight pin and stick in here and hold that in place while I stitch it down to help me keep it nice and even. So here you can see I've put this pin in place to hold it. That I have threaded my needle so that both ends of the thread are about even. And now I'm going to tie a knot. Okay, now that we've got this pinned and we're ready to stitch, I'm going to take my needle and go underneath or go through the top right at the edge so that my knot is at the back. You could, if you wanted to hide your knot, you could go through the middle or through, kind of tuck it in behind the outside layer and then pull it through so that your knot is hidden and it doesn't show, to give it a nice, neat finish. You can see the knot is right there at the edge. Then I'm going to come back through along the edge and do what's called a back stitch, which means I'm going to stitch backwards. It's like kind of taking a backstroke in swimming. We're going to go backwards and then over the front just a little bit, pull it down through the fabric, and then I'm going to come back up about where I came up the last time, or in the middle, and just kind of line these up. You could also do a blanket stitch or a whip stitch. If you know those stitches, you may ask an adult to help you, but we're just going to stitch this across with a back stitch, which means I feel like I'm going backwards. As I take my next stitch, I go a little bit farther than I did before, pull it down, and then come back through again. If you have a sewing machine, this would be a quick and easy. It would just take you a few seconds to lock your stitch, zigzag across or straight stitch, and then lock your stitches at the opposite end. So if you want to, you can stop your video now and sew across and make sure that you do a knot at the opposite end so that you can close this off. Sew on our button end. So for this end, we're going to fold it underneath just a little bit to hide our rough edge or our fraying edge, and then sew our button on to the top. Now this is a 4-hole button, and so we want to make sure that we have enough fabric underneath for all 4 holes to be inside the fabric. So I'm going to fold this a little bit deeper, as you can see, so that my holes will cover the button or fit with the button. So while I get my needle ready, I'm going to stick a pin in there to hold this in place. And I think we can leave it in there while we stitch the button on so that we don't have to mess with the other edges. We want to center it in the middle and bring our fabric or needle through the first hole, pull it tight, and I think you can either go from side to side or you can crisscross. And I think on this one I am going to crisscross. So I'm going to go back down diagonally through the opposite hole, pull tight, and then come back up through the opposite hole from the side until I create an X pattern through the 4 buttonholes. Now I'm going to do this about 3 or 4 times to make sure that it's nice and secure. Why don't you stop your video and you sew yours? Okay, I have went through my X, or created my X 3 times to secure my button on. Now I'm going to turn it over and use the underneath area to secure my threads. So I'm going to stick my needle through the stitches I've already made, catch it underneath, and then pull through. I think I'm going to go ahead and pull my pin out, which gives us a little wiggle room. And we are almost done with our bookmark. So, pulling the needle through, catching the loop, twist it around the needle 2 or 3 times, and then pull to tighten the knot down. Now we'll trim it off, and our bookmark is finished. So here we have our completed bookmark for a small paperback book. Let's try it and see how it works. Here's our book. We'll turn it to the page where we finished reading, bring the button around, and there we go. A bookmark for a friend. Might want to make it a little bit longer in case the book is a little bit deeper, but this will work perfect for my husband and his favorite Westerns. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and it was easy for you to do. Remember, you can sew it by hand or sew it on the sewing machine, but make sure you have adults' permission before you start on the sewing machine. Thank you, and thank you for making the best better with Oklahoma 4-H.